Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Boston University's Professional Fundraising Program webinar. My name is Sarah. I'm your moderator for today's session, and we're delighted to have you all with us today. In our webinar, we'll provide an overview of our reputable program, which is designed to equip you with the skills and knowledge necessary to excel in the field of fundraising and philanthropy. And we're pleased to have with us today Jon Schaffrath, the director of our program, as he leads our discussion and shares his insights into how our 12-week online certificate program is structured and how it can empower you to drive meaningful change in your career and the world of fundraising. Additionally, you'll hear firsthand experiences from our program alumni here and how the program has equipped them to make significant contributions in their professional roles. And then they'll also offer some advice for our prospective students. We look forward to a dynamic and informative session with you, and we welcome you to ask questions during or after our discussion. We'll also have time at the end of the presentation for a brief Q&A as well. And today's webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent to your email for your reference and to share with your colleagues as you wish. And I would now like to introduce the Professional Fundraising Program Director and today's host, Jon. As the Regional Director and Senior Development Officer at Harvard Business School, he spent many years in alumni engagement, annual funds, volunteer management, and major gifts, just to name a few key areas there. Jon completed the program himself in 2007 and has been instructing for the past 14 years or so. So Jon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for logging in today, and for those who are checking out the recording later. For those who take the course, you'll hear me say this at the beginning of the program, but it's no less true now that I find it truly inspiring that there's so many people interested in being part of the philanthropy ecosystem, whether as professionals or volunteers. You know, the world is a challenging place, feels like always, but there's so many great organizations contributing to society in meaningful ways. And those organizations cannot exist if they're not able to find funding. And a course like this is able to equip, again, both volunteers and professionals to be able to do that effectively and really have an impact in a meaningful way on society. So thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to having some time with you. I am thrilled to be joined by Melissa Cook and Sandy Kingsley, both a relatively recent student and a student from a little bit longer ago, but to my great fortune, Sandy is also a member of our teaching team, so is so close to the program. You know, I will briefly say, Sarah mentioned this at the beginning, I actually also qualified for this panel, not just because I'm moderating it, but because I was a former participant in the program myself. When I took it, it was not online, it was in person, but the sort of motivation behind it was still very similar, a broad-based course to help equip volunteers and professionals in all parts of fundraising and philanthropy, as well as to help individuals who are coming without experience or knowledge really get a sense of what the whole fundraising organization is all about. So for me, when I took the course, it was to expand that knowledge. I knew one very specific part of the fundraising organization, and knowing that I had aspirations to move up in my current organization and in the field, I thought it would be very helpful to have a broader understanding of everything that's going on. So, and that has helped me, and I've appreciated that. So we'll start. I'm going to ask Melissa and Sandy to introduce themselves and share a little bit about sort of their background and how they touch philanthropy professionally and or as a volunteer. And we'll start with, why don't we start with you, Sandy?
Hey everyone, my name's Sandy Kingsley. Happy to join you today. I've been with the Professional Fundraising Program for about 7.5 years. I initially took the course myself. The reason that I did is I felt where I lived at that time, there were a tremendous amount of nonprofits, and I thought the course would be super helpful if that's an area that I wanted to step into. What I appreciated about the course was I was a beginner, I had no exposure whatsoever to professional fundraising. So the program is really appropriate whether you're looking for career change, starting out in professional fundraising, or if you've been in professional fundraising for a long period of time. It's applicable across the board, which I really appreciate. My career, my full-time work is in higher education. Actually, right now, I just stepped out of administration in higher education, and I am pursuing an opportunity in professional fundraising with a foundation at a university. So I'm happy to be here, and hopefully would love to interact with you all as your facilitator in the class.
Thank you, Sandy. Melissa?
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I was recently a student in the program, just graduated in April. So this is a little bit more recent for me, but for all the career pivotters out there, that was sort of what drew me to the course. For the past 7 years, I've been working in communications in the news industry, first in New York and then in DC. And sort of at that 7-year itch mark was sort of doing some introspective work on what I wanted to do next, what impact was I really making. And once I decided that I wanted to enter the development space, knowing a lot of the skills were transferable from my current work, but really wanting to make sure I was entering the field with a solid foundation and skill set and putting those skills into practice. And so I found the course was, as Sandy mentioned, you can be at sort of any stage of your career. And it was really helpful for me to not only learn from the course material, but from a lot of my classmates who were already in the industry. And so being able to pick up on some of their experiences was really fruitful and beneficial for me. So I'm happy to share more about my experience today with you all. And hopefully it's helpful whether you're deciding if this program is right for you.
Terrific. Thank you, Melissa. So I'm always interested, and Sandy, you sort of mentioned this, but if there's anything you would add, but sort of the initial motivation to take the program. And then also sort of, I know you both sort of mentioned that, but what sort of got you over that step? So a lot of us, myself included, we look at the it's great to learn, it's great to add skills. Life is busy, there's, friends, family, kid, all that sort of stuff. So maybe a little bit less on the motivation because you shared that, but what got you on that step to actually sign up to get in the classroom? Was there anyone who helped sort of support you in actually taking the step? Sandy, why don't we start with you?
Not really. I just
did it. You're way more motivated than I am. I love it.
I found the program online. It's like, oh, this sounds interesting. And like I said, where I lived at the time, there was a tremendous amount of nonprofits in the area, and I thought it would be some great skills to bring on board. But I also think that whether you choose to work in fundraising or the nonprofit sector, if you're, your church or your kid's school, or there's a lot of areas where these skills are applicable, even if it's not your career, that you can volunteer, make a difference in all areas. So I think, and as I said, it was valuable to me, and I was a little bit intimidated because initially I found out it's like, oh, there's a lot of people in here that have been in fundraising for a really long time. And that was a little bit intimidating. But like Melissa said, I learned a lot from those people that have, those professional fundraisers that have been doing it for quite some time, and it was their career. But again, the course is designed so that whether you're a novice or whether you've been in fundraising for a long time, it's very applicable.
Thank you. All right, Melissa, anyone help you get you over that hurdle, or you're also self-motivated and I'm just barking up the wrong tree?
I was pretty sold on it, but I'm always one of those people who likes to get like 3 people to agree with my decision before I really do it. So I did a bunch of sort of informationals with people who were already in the industry and sort of asked, like, am I checking an unnecessary box or would this be fruitful? And unanimously, they were like, if this sort of existed or was at the beginning of my career, I would absolutely be doing it. I think the other big selling point for me was someone who wanted to eventually down the road get my CFRE, knowing that this sort of counted for the education component of it. It was a little bit of 2 birds, 1 stone. So I think that was sort of the selling point over the line for me.
Well, that's great.
So John, real quick, I wanted to add, even though there was nobody in my circle encouraging me to take this class, I will say that once I found the program online and I made contact with Boston University, and inquired about the program, I got a lot of support and a lot of affirmation that it was really a valuable program to do. So the folks on Boston University side are great. If you have any questions, I mean, we're all here also to answer questions if you're kind of on the fence about it.
That's great. Thank you, Sandy. Melissa, pulling a little bit on sort of the people in the program. So you mentioned that a couple of times. Would love to hear a little bit more about sort of what the importance of that community was, and also, you know, this is a asynchronous online program, and so how did you make some of those connections, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the program, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're really willing to sort of connect with people offline or ask really thoughtful questions based off of the discussion post of, oh, you brought something up interesting. I'm a person who's like, there's no stupid questions. So if somebody made a point of something and I'm like, what does that acronym mean? Like, what are you talking about in your hospital? You do X, Y, Z. People were always really happy to sort of explain or pull back the curtain to somebody who was new to the industry. I think it's ironic, like every week we all, like, it is sort of asynchronous, but everybody posted like at the same time, like we all fell into a pattern. So the first person was always still there. So if you're sort of early to the game, you still do get those connections. And then I think also a lot of the course instructors were more than happy to connect with me offline. And I think that was one of the big game changers, as someone who was really looking sort of, I had networks in New York and DC, but didn't have that in Boston. Some of the connections that the instructors set me up with are like still trickling out to being like, you should meet this person, this person, and this person. So that was sort of the invaluable tool that unlocked sort of really just even entering this space and making a broader network outside of the program. But my cohort was fantastic. We even had like our own little graduation party on Zoom, and we are all sort of connected on LinkedIn. So like I said, if you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're willing to sort of put yourself out there, I think you will have a lot of valuable connections that will be long lasting from the program.
No, that's great. No, and I love that you guys organized a Zoom graduation. That was super cool. Sandy, talk a little bit about, because you see this both from when you went through the program and as a part of the teaching team, but how would you describe sort of the mix of, you know, so you were, both of you guys here actually were new to the field, sort of coming into it, but how would you describe that mix and give people a sense of you know, what that audience might look like?
Well, for me, I think the most gratifying part of being a facilitator for the program is just the wide variety of folks that come into the program. I would say, especially over the last couple of years, there's more international students that are signing up and learning about how professional fundraising is done in other countries. So it's, I think it's just a great opportunity for people to connect that come from all different areas, whether it's, you know, their church or whatever. I mean, there's just such a wide variety. And for me, it was, I went back to school later in life, and I had just finished my bachelor's degree online. So I was fairly new to online learning, but I did have a little bit of time under my belt. I think that the program does a really great job in connecting all of the students online, and especially now that we've added the live sessions as well. I feel like that's really added to the connectedness of the students. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot out of it. I've stayed connected on LinkedIn with a lot of the people that I went through the program with, and each session, the students that come through, I connect with them. So it's really a great place to build a network too, especially if you're just, you know, starting out in fundraising, or even if you're, you know, a seasoned veteran. I've seen a lot of networking opportunities with people that have come through the course, including myself.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I feel like I also find that even all these years later, I'm still adding people from, you know, all over the country and world. And,
Yeah.
you know, it may not, with technology, obviously, the world's become so flat that it's easy to connect and get, you know, ongoing resource from individuals. You know, we might have a Zoom, we might just have a a LinkedIn chat, and I can learn something. I'm always sort of learning through that network. Melissa, can I ask you would you talk a little bit more about the live classes from this sort of the student experience and sort of what that was or how that played into sort of building community and learning?
Yeah, I think the live element, even though it is online and it's sort of designed for somebody who is, a working professional or has their family and other commitments, I think the live element allowed us to connect to sort of in real time and face to face as much as face to face as possible, sort of post 2020, and sort of hear people's experiences in real time and apply those and ask questions. I think that was the main thing that I really enjoyed was you can sort of, instead of like waiting to sort of watch the whole video and get through the assignment and then have a question, you could just ask the instructor right then and there, and maybe your classmates also have a similar question, so you're all sort of learning together and sort of piggybacking off of. I think it also sort of brought the discussion boards to life and sort of having those thoughtful discussions in real time, and people hearing different people's sort of perspective or how they're applying it in their current positions. For someone who is new to the field, that was always really interesting to me to sort of hear how these theoretical sort of points are really actually being utilized in the real world through some of my classmates' organizations. So that was really fruitful.
Thank you. And let me just add for those as you're thinking about this course, the live sessions are optional to attend live. They're all recorded and they end up in the recording library so that you can watch them later in the week. And we actually do part of your work each week is to reflect on those live sessions that you can watch live or on the recording. So it is a value, it's integrated in the course. It's which I think has been something people have enjoyed because it sort of forces you to do that piece of it. And that content is also, all of the content in the program is pretty dynamic, but having a professional in the field talk for an hour and share, there's always new nugget. I mean, again, I get the great benefit of listening to a lot of these and learning as well. So let's do a little sort of expectation setting, and you can feel free to both the things that met expectations and if there were areas where you were sort of expecting something different. Let's go behind the scenes a little bit, so feel free to be constructive. But sort of, let's start with you, Melissa. Maybe expectations going into the program, actually from the learning experience, and sort of where things met that, or if there's areas you'd be like, oh, just keep this in mind.
I don't even think I have criticism. I was going to say, I think my expectations were really to get that solid foundation of knowledge. And I think, you'll highlight the modules later in the session, but really getting an understanding of each sector of fundraising and getting a grasp and applying those concepts, like I said, through the assignments and getting feedback on that, or being able to sort of see feedback from your colleagues was super helpful. And I think that was sort of my expectation going into it, along with the relationship building, which I've kind of hinted on. But as somebody who is new to the field, one thing that I think I wasn't expecting that the course did provide was sort of helping me sort of discern what sector of fundraising I would want to go into versus not going into. And would I want to go into annual fund or major gifts or planned giving? I wasn't expecting to sort of be able to narrow that down from based off of the assignments, and also hearing from different colleagues in the program sort of what kind of shop I might even want to go into. So that sort of discernment was an expectation that was surpassed for me, that I really appreciated.
Interesting. And don't kill the punchline. What did you find yourself gravitating towards?
I actually really enjoyed major gifts and planned giving, and I thought the intersection of them was really interesting. I thought planned giving was going to be very morbid, and I wasn't, super excited, but I thought that module was really well done. So, and then obviously I think I got a little bit of an affinity for the healthcare industry and healthcare philanthropy through the program. So.
Oh, very interesting. Sandy, how would you thinking back, how would you talk about expectations and what met or didn't?
Well, I don't think that the program was that much different when I went through it 7 years ago. The same basic information for fundraising is covered, but what I have seen as the facilitator over the years is an evolution. I know when we went through the pandemic, things changed a little bit, and now the course is incorporating some AI choices in the assignment. So I think that we've been really good about shifting and evolving with current times. And the other thing is, as I stated, there's people around the world in different time zones, and the program is very much structured to meet the needs of any student, no matter where they're at in the world. Like you said, you can join the live session or you can watch the recording, but it's set up so that everybody has access to the same information on a schedule that works for them.
Thank you. And maybe Sandy, because you're intimately involved with this part, but talk a little bit about, so one of the things that I'm really proud of in this program is how the assignments are structured. And could you just share a little bit about, that part of the program and how you see the sort of benefit or sort of, yeah.
Sure. Well, each week the students have 2 assignments. They're due at the same time. There's a reflection, which is basically talking about the live session, a couple of questions. And that, my experience as far as this being a non-credit course, is that the focus is on the learning and the absorbing of the material, not so much, oh, well, you got an A or you got a B. It's more, are you getting the information? Are you understanding it? I think the other thing that I like as well is we do offer a format that you can follow. Say we use Martin University for, you can use this fictitious organization for your assignment, or you can take your job, your fundraising job, and you can do this assignment based on your particular organization, which I have found a lot of people really appreciate that. Then they take that information and they incorporate it into their full-time jobs. So I think that's a benefit as well, that we're very fluid and we're very accommodating as far as what's going to work best for each student when you do this assignment. Do you want to use your own organization or do you want to use Martin University?
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, and I think one of the benefits for some can be, there's also with each topic, you can sort of come up with like a portfolio of work you've done, which is pretty close to practice. It's things that you would actually do in the field, outside of obviously working with a direct individual. And I think for many, particularly those who haven't had the experience, it's a way to really experience without having to have the full-time job or volunteer role.
Yeah,
Melissa.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've interacted with students with assignments that are like, oh, well, this is a project that I wanted to get started on in my position, but I didn't know what to do or how to get started. So they use the class and that particular assignment to begin that process. And then, like I said, then they take that into their work life. So I think that's very beneficial.
Yeah, no, that's one. Yeah, no, Sandy, I think that's a great point. Melissa, I'm going to cold call you with a question we got because I have an answer, but I work for the program. As a working professional, how many hours would you say you're putting into the program? And you can be as real as you can be.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It was probably one of the first questions. I think I called the BU office and was like, how many hours a week is this, to make sure I could, really keep it up with my work. And they said 7 to 10. And I think that's fairly accurate, but sort of what I mentioned earlier, I really think what you're putting into it is what you're getting out of it. So if you're willing to put more into it, be really active on those discussion boards. If you have a thoughtful question or idea or thought from a module, you're messaging an instructor on the sidelines. It could certainly be more, but I wouldn't say that it would take more than those sort of 7 to 10 hours of the program a week. I found it was very manageable with a demanding full-time job. I think once you sort of get into a rhythm of what works for you, you're able to sort of, I wouldn't say like do those 7 to 10 hours in one straight block, like read the material, digest it, do the class, digest it, do the assignment, participate throughout the week. But very manageable to do sort of with a full-time 40 hours a week plus. Like.
No, thank you. And I would just add that it is also highly structured. So you expect this, while the topics and instructors are different each week, you have the same expectations. And so if you figure out where those times are that you can do the work, so that each week you can do the same thing, if that works for you. There's not a lot of surprises or like some big final exam at the end that you're going to have to put in all these extra hours. Melissa, I'm just going to ask, and then we'll get to one last question. But you mentioned a little bit the instructors and sort of what that experience like that. Could you just talk a little bit more of like how you would characterize the group of instructors in the program and sort of what they brought to the program?
Yeah, every professor or instructor, I end up calling them professors, but I guess instructors, was incredibly knowledgeable in their field. And you can tell they really put a lot of time and effort and thought into the module that they were teaching. And I think one thing that I found about the development space in general is that people are really eager to welcome new people into the industry and are very passionate about their work. And I think that was very evident in all of the instructors. It seems like this is a little bit more of like a calling than a career, and they were more than happy to engage off the platform or through the program. Teresa Lee is one that I'll just give a major shout out to. She did multiple modules and was so thoughtful, and all of her modules were very well done. But she talked with me on the phone for like an hour on the side of just like picking my brain of what I wanted to do and like how to even like pressure test a shop when I was interviewing for a job, and passed me on to her own connections. And they really just want to see you succeed. So I found everybody was very responsive. It wasn't like they were just sort of recycling a presentation. There was very much real world examples from, you could tell recent days in there and drawing from their own careers, that I thought was just so beneficial.
Thank you. No, I will take this opportunity for Teresa, but the whole team, incredibly grateful for a group of individuals that really, started all in the Boston area, but really now are sort of around the country, on different time zones, on areas where they are truly experts in the field and taking the time out to work with our students and to just be really engaging. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to that team. So I guess I think we're hitting sort of the time. I don't see other questions from the group. There's ways to ask questions at the end as well. But let's just end on a piece of advice for students and leave them with that. Sandy, do you want to start?
Well, I just wanted to add on what you were saying, John, is that there is a definite cadence to the program. So there's no surprises. I mean, once you have a few weeks under your belt, you're going to know what to expect. There's announcements every week by the instructors. So it's like this week, your facilitators are this, and this is when your assignments are due. So there's no surprises. And then just going back as far as the teaching staff and what we do, our primary goal is for you to be successful. And we did go through COVID, and we had students that got sick and needed extra time, and which we're very accommodating when it comes to people's lives and what's going on. So don't be intimidated that you have a full-time job or probably a family or whatever. It's like we work with each student to make sure that you're successful.
Thank you, Sandy. Melissa, final word.
I think the major thing is just to really be engaged in the work, ask questions, sort of look at it through a lens of the real world, find ways that you can sort of apply it in real time. I found like interesting, lessons that I even took to a job that's not even in the field. So there was leadership, nuggets I took away, and the connections are just keep up with them, and also save all of your work. I saved everything and still reference like some of the things that I've learned or utilized. So I think, the information there is plentiful, and if you can utilize it right, you're going to get a lot out of the course.
Thank you. Well, Melissa and Sandy, I am incredibly grateful to know both of you, to have you in the program, have gone through the program, to just experience your entries into the field, and again, for taking the time today. We will, of course, stay in touch, but again, thank you, and we'll move towards a little bit of overview of the program now.
Thank you both, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for your insights here and discussions. We'll keep you on though, just in case any questions come up at the end here. So we're just going to briefly turn the page to some BU program information before we get to the Q&A at the end. John, you'll take the fundraising modules here. Just one moment. All right.
Thank you, Sarah. So as was referenced in our conversation, the program is 12 weeks long and set up that each week is a different part of the fundraising organization. And as you'll see here, it really touches the whole shop, from the frontline experience with major gifts and annual fund to some of the areas that are internal to the organization, supporting gift management and events. We go deep in a couple key areas like capital campaigns and volunteer leadership, which pretty much every organization is going to hit on at some point. And then we also spend some time at the beginning and end looking both at the field generally, sort of at the beginning, and sort of inspiring around what the impact of philanthropy can be. And then at the end, we actually do, in addition to closing up some of the broader topics, we spend some time talking about being in the field, succeeding in the field. We actually now have a bunch of great content in the program, including a partner in the last live class with a current recruiter in the field. So really sharing firsthand knowledge of what it means to get in the field and to actually get jobs and interview and all that sort of stuff.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we're now going to just turn to some program logistics. I know we touched on some of this stuff throughout the panel discussion here, but we'll get into a little bit more of the details as we go along. As John mentioned, the course is asynchronous, meaning the entire class does not have to meet at a designated time or day, but there are specific due dates outlined for your assignments to turn in as you progress through the course. These are instructor-led courses, as Sandy was mentioning as well. You'll interact with Sandy as our facilitator and other instructors like Teresa Lee, who was mentioned. It's not self-paced, but you will get face-to-face time and opportunities to talk with your instructors or peers in those live sessions or off one-on-one or in discussion boards. You will log in daily to check announcements and messages and to participate in your discussions, communicate with your instructors via that message board or privately through the internal messenger system. And each student is assigned a fundraising mentor. So each person will work across diverse nonprofit sectors for networking, for career advice. Just nice to have that one-on-one with somebody actually working in the field, being there to mentor you through this and afterwards. The approximate time commitment, as we mentioned, is 7 to 10 hours a week. That's just a reference based on what you should bank to have. Of course, you could do more or less based on that. And there are about 8 to 10 live video sessions throughout the 12-week program. Attendance, as John mentioned, is not as required, but is suggested. And the online class platform that we use is Blackboard.
I'll actually just interrupt. I should have caught this before, but it's even better than that. Each week, there's 12 live classrooms that you have the opportunity to attend and listen to, if not attend live.
Great, thank you, John. And here's just our program schedule for the full year, and then we'll talk about, of course, the program that is coming up soon. If you're interested in learning more, we do have the program offered every January, May, and September. And so our fall enrollment deadline is the one that is quickly approaching. The deadline for that is August 23rd. Class begins on September 3rd, and the tuition is listed there, $2,495. We do have payment plans also available in certain promotions throughout the year. And if you do have any questions pertaining to the program or the enrollment process, we do have enrollment advisors who are happy to help and can be contacted at the information displayed on the screen here. We also have live chat on the website if you prefer to use the chat feature versus calling or emailing. Okay, so that now just brings us to our final Q&A to close our session today. Feel free to put in any questions into the chat, program related, or questions or advice that you'd like from our panelists here, and we'll answer those accordingly.
Sarah, let me jump in. There was another question in the chat. The question was, does the program prepare graduates to immediately be ready to jump into a fundraising job? I would say, in many cases, yes, and definitely able to jump into a role. There are some roles that you'll learn about that are more, more specifically tailored, or there'd be a lot of additional or some additional knowledge needed, like plan giving, for example. There's a bunch of ins and outs, but for many, there's plenty of information in this program that would set you up to be able to fundraise or be part of the team from day one. I think there's a question for you, Sarah, because I don't think I know. Do you have the date for the January session? We might not actually have that yet, do we?
I don't believe we have that one yet, but why don't we?
Actually, sorry, this is just going to jump on here real quick.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it.
My name is
another great member of our BU team. Hi, Thomas.
So I'm the program manager for this. We just got that information just recently. The program will start January 14th for the spring. I don't have the further dates. I don't have the summer or fall dates for 2025 yet, but the spring date will be January 14th. And then I haven't worked out what the 12-week span would then be, but that it should be, it'll be sometime in early, like the very end of March, very beginning of April is when the session will end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate the info there. All right. Next question here for whoever wants to jump in and take it. Who is the ideal candidate for this program? Is it those new to fundraising who have maybe 5 or so years of experience, or maybe more mature with 10 years of experience?
So I'm happy to jump in. I would say both. So the key groups that the program tends to draw from are new to the field, looking to move up in the field. So that was sort of my example, where broader experience with the whole organization is helpful. Career switchers for sure, and most recently in growing numbers, volunteers. So whether you be a board member at a nonprofit, or just someone involved in the fundraising organization on a volunteer level, we're seeing people sort of sign up and learn that way.
Thank you, John. All right, just next question here. You might have touched on this a little bit. What is the grading scale? Is this a letter grade or pass-fail? And what exactly are we graded on?
Oh, this is great to have Sandy here. Sandy, do you want to take that one? I'm happy to as well.
Oh, I think you're muted, Sandy.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. So each week, the module that you're going to be provided will have a rubric. So it's very clear about what the expectations are. And over the last couple of years, we've also added a sample assignment that you can review so that you are very clear about what the expectations are. My grading, the way that I grade is I will literally go through point by point in the rubric. Have you answered every single question of the rubric? Is it satisfactory? On the reflection,
Sandy may have frozen, so I can jump in. The reflections are actually graded on sort of more of a pass-fail. You get full credit for reflecting and providing thoughts. That's the purpose of it. And then the last element each week is your discussion posts, where you're graded both on the quantity and quality. So we want sort of quality posts that are responding to either the prompt or your classmates. But we see a lot of value, sort of as Melissa said, for those who are getting in and moving the conversation forward and engaged. So if you're someone who is doing that, you are graded on that as well. Each module is, you do get a letter grade, and there is an expectation that you get at least a C. I think C. Why am I blanking on this? C in each module and a B overall to receive your certificate at the end.
So I don't know what happened. It just quit on me.
You're okay, Sandy. You're okay, Sandy. I jumped in and finished from reflection, so I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And let's see, and can either of you sort of give just a brief highlight of any new technology or any of that AI-enabled technology that you're using that has impacted your current role in fundraising and how you're using it currently, or you maybe anticipate using it currently. Whoever wants to jump in on that, feel free.
Melissa, any thoughts on there, or you can also talk about in communications generally, just if you see anything interesting.
Yeah, I think you know, trying to use AI as our friend and not our enemy is something we're all sort of grappling with. But I think for first draft of communications materials, the more detailed you can be with AI, it can give you sort of a general gist of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you have to sort of massage language and make it more human, or sort of your voice that you're trying to accomplish going over. And I think that was even something that we touched upon in the communications development module in the course, was how AI could be utilized to sort of get that first draft point, or some things that are a little bit more, you know, cut and paste. AI can sort of be a helpful time saver there. And I think that's something that's going to be helpful moving forward. But first and foremost, I think this industry is very personable, and relationship building is necessary. So the human element is always going to be necessary in addition to the AI.
I think if you're taking the course and also being a facilitator, I think the most important thing to remember is that fundraising is a relationship business. And as Melissa said, there's no replacing that. But also my experience, not only working for the program, but working in higher education, is AI is here. And how do we use that responsibly? How do we incorporate that into our daily lives without it taking over? So it's interesting. I've seen initially a lot of pushback in higher education, and a lot of concern, and teachers like, oh, they're going to write their papers with it. And then moving to, well, we just need to embrace this because it's here and it's not going anywhere.
Those are great answers. Thank you both. I knew there was a touch on that in some of the modules, and kind of just expanding on that is everyone's eager to know in this day and age, of course. So it looks like that's it for questions from our audience here today. If anyone has any other questions they think of after the fact, please contact us, like at the phone number or email that we saw on the previous screen here, and we'll be happy to answer that as quickly as possible. And with that, I think that will close our session for today. I just want to thank again Melissa and Sandy, and of course John, for facilitating the discussion. And we hope that the information we've presented here and the advice from our panelists in the career and about our program will help you take the next step in your educational goals, and bring you to that next phase in your professional development careers. So with that, we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.